YouTuber Jake Paul, who has become a household name after his boxing career that was once thought of as a joke, began to gain worldwide attention after his 4-0 start. And half-brother of world heavyweight champion Tyson Fury, Tommy Fury, are close to facing off with each other in the ring towards the end of the year. Today, we're going to be looking at if the Jake Paul and Tommy Fury fight will happen and what the pros are saying about the matchup. First, will the fight actually happen? The fight has been rumored for quite a while now, with a lot of speculation on social media. But recently, the rumors have turned into reality as the two fighters have agreed to the fight, but the terms of the contract are the only things holding it up. While the two fighters have been going back and forth on social media recently, there has been no official announcement, but it appears to be getting close. Fury's promoter, Frank Warner, recently told IFL TV that we're quite close and went on to say that they're hoping to get it over the line soon. So when will the fight happen? According to Warren, he hopes to have the contract signed by the end of the week, and the fight to happen in late November or early December, which is much earlier than everyone anticipated due to the stall in contract talks. But most people believe that the fight will roll into the new year and take place in the early months of 2022. When it comes to contracts and other factors, nothing is ever official until both parties sign on the dotted line. Jake Paul's boxing career. Jake Paul has fought in 4 professional bouts in his career, winning all 4. But there's a catch. He hasn't fought an actual professional boxer. His first bout was against an Jib, a fellow YouTuber in December of 2019. He then fought former NBA player Nate Robinson on the Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. undercard in July of 2020. His next fight was against Ben Askren, who formerly was an MMA fighter in Bellator. His most recent fight, Paul took on another MMA fighter, a former UFC welterweight champion this time, in Tyron Woodley. This was the only fight that Paul didn't knock his opponent out, winning in a split decision in May of 2021. Tommy Fury's boxing career. Tommy Fury is a professional boxer and has a career record of 7-0. He has 4 wins by knockout and 4 wins by decision. He began his professional career in 2018 and has fought all but one of his fights in England. His most recent win, a unanimous decision over Anthony Taylor, was in Cleveland, Ohio in August of 2021. The fight against Taylor was on the undercard of the Jake and Tyron Woodley fight, which is where the two began their back and forth leading up to the potential fight. What do the odds makers think of this one? BetOnline has released their odds for the fight, with Tommy Fury being the early favorite, but only by a slim margin. They have Fury minus 150, that's 2/3, and Paul at plus 125, that's 6/5. If the line holds, this will be the first time in his career that Jake Paul has entered a fight as an underdog. Sky Bet in the UK has also released their lines for the fight, with Fury again being the favorite with a 63.3% chance of winning. A bet for Tyson Fury to win is set at minus 175, meaning a bettor would have to bet $175 to win $100. A bet for Jake Paul is at plus 120, meaning a $100 bet will give you a $120 return. There's also a plus 2,200 odds if the fight ends in a draw. Their rise to stardom didn't start in a boxing ring. Most Americans know Jake Paul from his days on Vine and YouTube, but Tommy Fury also became well known before he became a boxer. Fury was the runner-up in Season 5 of Love Island that aired in the UK in 2019. Jake Paul's rise to fame began in 2013, posting videos on the now-defunct Vine. He had over 2 billion views on Vine when it was shut down. That launched him into an acting role on Disney Channel's Bizaardvark, along with his YouTube channel. He was released from the show on the Disney Channel due to a news report of things happening at his residence. So what's the holdup? Jake Paul isn't known for being subtle or acting like he is an adult at times, which isn't a bad thing, but when it comes to contract talks, it can be. In his last fight, it was in Tyron Woodley's contract that if he lost, he had to get a permanent tattoo that says, "I love Jake Paul." While Woodley did get the tattoo on his middle finger, Paul wasn't happy, saying that he is finding loopholes because he can change it to say a derogatory term about him. This time, Paul wants to add a clause in the contract to say that if Paul loses, he'll give an extra $500,000 to Fury, but if Fury loses, he has to legally change his surname through the Royal Courts of Justice in the UK for an entire year. That surname? Well, it's none other than Tommy Fumbles. How much money is enough money? Back in September, Jake Paul tweeted out that Fury had denied 2 abundant offers from his team. He then made another offer through Twitter. That offer was $1 million for 8 rounds. Paul then said that the offer was 4 times what Fury had ever made. The offer was said to be the last one Paul would offer, but Fury fired back and said that the price tag was nothing for a fight of this magnitude. Fury said that he's ready to fight anywhere, but Paul's team needs to get their figures up and then they could talk. While nothing is signed officially, the price tag is going to be at least $1 million, but expect that number to climb as negotiations continue. Jake Paul may be growing on boxing fans. When Jake Paul started boxing, a fellow YouTuber and a former NBA player, much smaller than Paul, there was a lot of bemoaning inside of the boxing world. Boxing and fans alike felt that Paul was making a mockery of the sport, using it for his own monetary gain. But after fighting two former MMA champions, knocking out one and winning by split decision against the other, the overall view seems to be changing. Not only is Paul growing in the boxing world for his winning ways, but he is bringing a lot more eyes to the sport that many said was losing its ways after many big names, retired. He may be outspoken and a bit over the top, but Jake Paul may be doing a lot more good for the boxing world than many people may think. Don't forget about Logan Paul. Jake Paul's older brother, Logan, has also made a name for himself in the boxing world, most recently holding his own against Floyd Mayweather Jr., arguably the best pound-for-pound fighter to ever step into the ring. Although Logan's only professional bout was a split decision loss to KSI, another YouTuber, Paul's exhibition with Mayweather brought a lot more eyes to the elder Paul brother. Tommy Fury's father, John, recently said on an episode of the True Geordie podcast that once Tommy smashes Jake, he's coming after Logan, which sets up an interesting rivalry between the Fury and the Paul family. A war of words. Tommy Fury recently went on TMZ Sports and unleashed on Jake Paul, adding to the already long list of back and forth between the two. He said that the fight against Paul would be an easy fight and that he would end Jake Paul's career. There's no more Jake Paul after he fight. That's it, Fury told TMZ Sports. The two have been going at it ever since the August fight in Cleveland, where Fury fought on the undercard for Paul's match against Tyron Woodley. They had an altercation after the fight, and they continue to go at it via social media and the news media ever since. Height, weight, reach comparison. Tommy Fury is 6 foot tall and Jake Paul is 6'1". The reach of any fighter can be a determining factor in a fight, but it will not in this one as both fighters have a 76-inch reach. The weight difference as of now is little noticeable, but what weights they'll be capped at in their fight is yet to be determined. In last fight against Anthony Taylor, Fury weighed in at 179 pounds. Paul fought the same night and he weighed in at 190 pounds. Finally, is this all a money-making scheme? Since Jake Paul started boxing professionally, there have been a fair share of people who are adamant that Paul has no desire to actually fight, and that him and his opponents are in cahoots to make easy money by knowing how the fight will end, and they both go home with their pockets full and their faces intact. But as each fight passes, it seems that Paul is really in this not just to make money, but to make a name for himself in the boxing world. In fact, Ben Askren was asked specifically about his fight with Paul, if it was fixed, and he sets the record straight by saying that it most definitely wasn't. He said he had nothing to gain from fixing the fight and that he wasn't hurting for money, so his intentions were not just to grab a paycheck, although he was quoted as saying he was just there for the money previously. I'll leave it up to you guys to figure out if Jake Paul fights are real. And that wraps up the video. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.